ever since Ben took over, this offense has been explosive over the last couple of years. We know that. But the real question has always been, what can this defense do? And what kind of defense can the Lions put out on the field every week? You're right. Can Aaron Glenn squeeze every bit of production out of these guys? And the best defensive game was against the Arizona Cardinals. I guess you'd follow that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, even though they lost. But defensively, they played really well. But the point is, that's a Cardinals team that you won't see in January, right? And that's a Buccaneers team that I don't look at as Super Bowl contenders. I mean, kind of same with the Seahawks, who also had 500-plus yards of offense, by the way. It's the 49ers. Some would say the Eagles, despite them struggling. They're not playing well. But even in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Bills, right, the Texans, like the Ravens obliterated the Bills on national television on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. So I want to bring this graphic up, and it's an interesting graphic. I'll get your guys' thoughts on it. This is the Lions' pass defense of the last 3 years, right? 2022, they allowed 245.8 yards per game. That ranked 30th in the NFL. In 2023, they allowed 247.4 yards per game. It ranked 27th in the NFL. And then now in 2024, currently, they're allowing more yards than the last 2 years through the stretch of games. And they're 30th in the NFL. And they allowed 383 passing yards to the Seahawks, which is the most by any team this season. And that's the conversation I wanted to have with you guys. And I have this other graphic just to compare other NFC teams. I didn't put any AFC teams on here. This is just about reaching the Super Bowl. We can have a whole nother debate or conversation about what the AFC looks like. But the teams in the NFC, currently right now, the 49ers, they're 15th in the NFL in pass yards allowed per game. The Packers are 24th, and the Eagles are actually 27th. So they're struggling as well. But you look at some of the competitors, I guess, or the teams you look at and say, okay, these teams will be at the top of the NFC at the end of the year. If you're iffy on the Eagles, that's fair. They're not playing well, so I completely understand that. Baker just lit them up, so I get that. But Packers and 49ers, 15th, 24th. Packers are allowing 218. The Lions are allowing, 250 plus, whatever the number is. So when we talk about this defense, guys, like they put together performances now without Davenport, and you're looking on the other side of Hutchinson, and you had Branch out, so you're getting kind of guys back as well if he's on IR. A couple guys are banged up. You just want him. You want him to be able to put together a good defensive performance consistently, and also you want them not only to be good in the secondary, but good against, getting after the quarterback, which actually I have this as well. And this is the 2024 team total sacks, which is something we talked about this year before the season, right? Like, how can this team be up there in sacks as a team? That's something we talked about. Currently, right now, the 49ers are 7th. They have 14 sacks. The Packers are 9th. They have 13 sacks. The Eagles are actually 29th, and they have 6 sacks. The Lions have 11 sacks, which ranks 14th. And actually, Hutchinson has 54% of that. He has 6.5 sacks, which is about 54.5% of the total sacks the Lions have. So besides Aiden, they have 4.5 besides Aiden. So, and by the way, the Eagles, these stats tell me more and more about how they're not good. But anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask I just want to know, where are these the contenders in the NFC? Is that why you picked those 3 teams?
I just put the names, like Eagles, 49ers, okay. Packers. Those are the 3 examples I use. I mean, you could go into other teams. Those are the only 3 I really look at as true contenders. Maybe not the Eagles anymore, but you get my point. Your guys' thoughts on all that, and just if the Lions' ability to get in that top echelon of defense this year, be like you don't have to be the elite best defense in the league, but you're confident that this defense can kind of get back and not be a bend don't break defense, because guys, and by the way, that happened last year. And what got to them is they faced a very efficient red zone scoring team, which bit them in the ass. Like, you can bend don't break against certain teams, but when you're facing these top level teams, they're going to score on you. Like that's just what the 49ers did it. They came back, even though Lions were up, they came right back and won. So your guys' thoughts and confidence level in this defense, kind of, figuring it out and putting more of the performances together that we saw, like against the Cardinals, for example.
I mean, I'll say this, I think, and especially through 4 weeks, I think it's been such a weird And I don't know, I guess you guys can agree with me on this. It's just, it feels like it's been a weird 4 weeks of football trying to figure out both sides of the ball, like offensively, defensively, what's going on with the Detroit Lions. One thing that stands out to me, and Jeff, I've looked at those stats a couple times after the Seattle game, and I'm like they're at the bottom of the NFL again in passing yards given up. Like that is a problem. Like if you're trying to diagnose the problem on this defense, the first thing you go to is what's the worst statistical category defensively? It's like the passing defense again. And that's been the issue for 2 years now. It's like you have to figure that out because the run defense is always great. The pass rush has been good. The linebacker is good. It's like what's going on in the secondary? How do we stop teams just cutting you up and putting up that many, passing yards? The one thing that makes me feel a little bit better is that the Lions right now in the NFL are 10th in points per game given up. Like that to me a little bit. And I know, Jeff, you're like the bend don't break. You can't go win a Super Bowl like that. It's tough. I do though believe that to a point, you have to think like with the Terrion Arnold, still a rookie, Amik Robertson, new to this defense, Carlton Davis, new to this defense, Brian Branch moving positions. I think there's a sense of the secondaries trying to get a feel for each other, and they're trying to find they're trying to find their identity, I guess is what you could say. And that's what it feels like a little bit with this secondary. Like right now, guys, the Detroit Lions, they're leading the NFL in defensive pass interference with 8 already on the season through 4 games. They're averaging 2 a game. And we saw that the defense alone had 9 penalties last week. So like this defense, they're doing this to themselves at times. They're backing themselves up. And then I do think there's an aspect, like we were talking about it on the postgame Monday night. The offense, the time of possessions, you would think when you're up by 2 possessions and you scored 40 points, you would think that your offense won time of possession. The Detroit Lions had 10 less minutes on offense. 10 less minutes on offense. So that means that like your offense they're doing a great job. They're scoring quick. They're going out there and they're having the JMO quick touchdown. They're having these quick touchdowns, quick possessions, but your defense is just out on the field. And they were already like, especially with the wide receiver core of JSN and Tyler Lockett and DK and K9 out there as well. Like that's a tough offense to sit there and be on the field for 10 more minutes than your offense. So like, yeah, I think the numbers to a point you could say are a little skewed. Like you've gone up against Matthew Stafford, Geno Smith, guys who want to throw the ball a ton. Baker Mayfield, who had a good game offensively as well. So I think as the season goes on, the secondary gets it together a little bit more. You would think AG figures out these penalties in the secondary, and the secondary with Brian Branch back, like these guys get it down. But if you're sitting there at 10th in the NFL in points per game given up, and you're 3-1, I'm not saying I'm extremely happy because I want the secondary to get it together, but you're 10th in the NFL in points per game given up, and your secondary is 30th. So if they improve at all, think about how good this defense can be. So there's optimism, boys. There's potential, a lot of potential, Jeff.
Yeah, what do you think, Klotz? You cooked there. The only thing I have to add on is just Seahawks game lost a lot of yardage or gave up a lot of yardage. The one thing that really stuck out was the missed tackles, which led to more yardage. A lot of that has to do with Brian Branch. Like Brian Branch not playing was huge. I think when you look into that, Terrion Arnold, like all the things that he's missing on right now as far as the penalties, the yards given up, like it's all just simple coaching, and he's going to get better. Ife Melifonwu is going to come back. This run defense is so dominant that Geno Smith's having to throw for 55 times, and the Seattle Seahawks are still out there for 10 minutes longer than that. When you look at Matthew Stafford, they just stopped trying to run the ball. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers stopped trying to run the ball, but only gave up 180-some yards to Baker Mayfield. Same thing with Kyler Murray. Like this defense, I know that statistically it might be similar in production when you look at what they were last year and the seasons prior, but the eye test I think is completely different. I think this defense is much better. If you're watching it, you can tell. They don't give up any big plays. What really broke the back of the Detroit Lions last year was the Kindle Vildor, Brandon Ayuk big play. Stuff like that I do not see happening on this defense. They've yet to show to give up big plays consistently, and I think that's going to stay that way. So I'm not worried about this defense, especially when the whole thing with the Lions is the offense needs to be on the field running the ball. And I think with this defense, it's going to allow the offense to run. So it's not the best defense in the NFL. It might not even be a top half when you look at yards given up. But to Booner's point, the points per game is what matters. They're creating turnovers consistently in all the games they've had turnovers. So as long as they keep doing what they're doing now, and that you expect the secondary to kind of mesh a little bit more, Terrion Arnold to get better, Brian Branch, Ife Melifonwu, them coming back, that's going to make a big difference. I'm very confident in this defense, so that it's not something that's going to hold this team back from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think at this point it's the time for teams to start gelling and figuring it out. and improving on both sides of the ball. So you're willing to give the Lions like some grace, of course. Like they showed a great defensive performance against the Cardinals. Like I understand that. My point is I'm trying to look at the big picture. Like, even getting to the Super Bowl, like I brought up some NFC teams, but what about who you're facing in the Super Bowl? Like what if you face, like John brought up yesterday, what if you face the Ravens, on both sides of the ball? Like matching up with those teams. That's why, like, I get your guys' point. It's something I want to bring up because, you beat Kyler Murray, you beat Matthew, you beat Geno Smith, but you're going to be facing Lamar Jackson or, Patrick Mahomes. We'll see with the injuries, but you get my point. Like you go up a level, or even the 49ers late in the playoffs and you get maybe they get healthy at some point. So that's where I'm going with it, is just like, and I don't think they're quite the same as they were last year. Like last year it was really bad. This year it's like like you said, Klotz, and you said this well, Booner, too, they're not giving up big plays and they have a lot of penalties. You just got to hope this secondary, specifically Terrion, can stop giving up PI. Like these PI calls are ridiculous. And the secondary can just gel. And that's basically what I don't want to say it's like all hope, but it is projection. You're like, at some point they're going to play really well together.
I mean, that's what we said coming into the season, is like this secondary is not going to click right away. We're heading into week 5. The Lions are on a bye. They had some injuries going on in the secondary. Carlton Davis even went down. Even was not going to win that out of him. That was still like a play where Ennis Rakestraw had to step in. So all these things, they do matter. You saw Kendall Vildor out there for some plays. Like this, when that secondary clicks, it might not be an elite unit, but look at how Kirby Joseph is playing. He's playing at all-pro level. Brian Branch is an all-pro level safety, and I think he's definitely on his way to winning that all-pro safety pretty soon here. So when you look at the corners, it's really the only weakness that you're looking at, and it's Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold compared to Cam Sutton, Kendall Vildor, and Jerry Jacobs. And that's what I think truly matters. Like, okay, production is fine, but that's where it's like stats, you need the context with them too. And I think that's what truly matters there.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to watch. I mean, even people like Michael says it's not the secondary. This cornerbacks can only keep up for so long. Like it is both. That's why I brought up the sack graphic. Like Aiden has like almost 55% of their sacks basically. Like, which is good and bad. Like good because it's Aiden, he's playing well.
It does feel like, though, there are a lot of times where the pass rush is getting there, and like Geno, like I saw a couple plays of Geno Smith today, a couple like film breakdowns of Geno, like the pass rush is there, and Geno's just making a great play, and there's a player wide open downfield that makes a last second move, and is sitting there open, and you're like if you guard him for like a half a more second, and you're good. And I think it's been like remember Matthew Stafford, how much pressure was on Stafford, and he was just getting the rock out so quick. And so I think there is a sense of that. I would say it's more so, and maybe this is just me. I would say more so right now it is the corners over the pass rush. Personally, that's where I would go towards it. And I think it's more so like Terrion kind of still developing and getting into things and figuring this thing out in the NFL. And same with like Carlton getting into a new defense. But I think the pass rush hasn't been like the biggest issue outside of Hutch. Like Levi O's been good. Maybe we do. I still think we need another edge on the other side. We've been saying that for like 4 months now. But either way, you can't be giving up that many yards in the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, at least for their bookend edges between Josh and what Davenport did, they have half a sack. So like Levi, I guess, but he's an edge, I guess you can quantify him that. So what does Levi have on the season? I mean,
maybe a sack and a half, I believe.
Which is actually probably pretty good for Levi. I'm not gonna lie to you.
And then like DJ Reader's been playing really well inside of the lean.
But I'm talking about just playing edge. On the other side of Aiden, you have Levi, Davenport, Josh all have 2 sacks combined. Like that to me is like, okay, go get an edge. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.